Recording is in progress, I just heard. I think everyone else did too. Call to order, please.
Trustee Wells.
Here.
Trustee Lawson.
Here.
Trustee Marquez.
Here.
Vice President Diaz-Slocum.
Here.
President McAvoy.
Present. Okay, let's see. Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see all of you. Bienvenidos. Si necesita interpretación en español, por favor busque la información en el chat. Gracias. Welcome everyone to the December 8th Redwood City School Board meeting. Thank you all for being here. I see folks joining as we're starting the meeting. I'll post some links in the chat for a moment, in a minute, with the agenda as well as how to sign up to make comments. If you would like to speak to the board, please fill out the Google Doc. Be sure to include your name so that we know who to unmute when the time comes. You will be given, looks like tonight, 3 minutes to speak on an item. And we do have some community members who are on the agenda, and you don't need to fill out a Google Doc at this point, I don't think. But I can defer to Eliana on that when we get there. Let's see. If the item you wish to address is not on the agenda, you will be called on during oral communication. If the item is on the agenda, you will be called on when that item is being addressed. And as a reminder, this is a board meeting meant for board business. And currently we have the chat feature open, and the panelists, so the board members and staff on the panel, will be able to see the questions. I mean, the comments. We just ask that you just use that for a clarifying question or a quick comment. And then if you want to make a formal comment to the board, please fill out the speaker card and we'll handle it that way. And as a reminder, because we are meeting virtually, all votes will be by roll call, and we are recording the meeting. All right. So thanks again for being here. And do I have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I recommend moving item 8.2 to the consent, section 7. Okay.
Any others?
I have 2 other suggestions to move to consent. One is 11.2, the Measure U application for North Star Academy. And then action items 11.3 to 11.7, which are our second readings, where we didn't have really any discussion in the first reading of the policies.
Okay, and I don't see any comment cards to any of those. So, all right, that sounds good to me. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda per the changes that we were just given?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Maria made a motion, Mike made a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Lawson.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Slocum.
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. All right, I do not see any oral communication comments. Let me just double check. Nope. So we are on to number 6, our Citizens Measure U Oversight Committee. And I know we have one of our former city council members here, Janet Borgens, and a friend of Redwood City and all of our students and families. Thank you so much for being here. And I understand you'll be helping with this report tonight. And I don't know, Dr. Bager, if you want to say anything before we let Janet take it over.
Sure. I just want to thank the committee. They put a lot of time and effort into reading all these plans, giving us updates on how we could modify them and do it better, which is great because we want to make sure that our citizens do understand what and how the schools are spending the parcel tax dollars. So Janet, since you're now the chairwoman, I will say go forward and give that report.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having us and listening to our report today. I want to start off by thanking all of you. We are definitely in challenging times right now. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to the parents. Thank you to the students. As a community, we've had to adjust, readjust, 2-step forwards, 3-step backs. We keep going forward, all while balancing your own needs. So it is duly noted and appreciated of all the hard work that all of you have put in to getting it right for our students and our families while putting your needs second to theirs. And it is noticed and it is deeply appreciated by your community. You have done a stellar job. We could not have done any of this without the amazing staff that the district has. And so I want to personally thank all of them for all their hard work. The resiliency of all of you has been amazing. You make a difference in a difficult and challenging time by staying focused on what you can do, should do, will do, and have done. So thank you from a grateful community. I just wanted to be able to say that and hope all of you have an enormously amazing holiday season. However you celebrate that, spend it with your families, hug your loved ones, your dear ones, keep them close. If anything we've learned how very important that is. So thank you. And I am here today to present to you the 2020-21 Measure U Community Oversight Committee report. So before you, you will see that report. It is done with a lot of hard work, as Mr. Baker said, from your Measure U Community Oversight Committee, which was mandated in the piece of legislation. And trust me when I tell you, they read every application to make sure that it is all done according to what the law said it needed to be done. And your teachers do an amazing job balancing those funds for our students. The report that follows contains unanimous resolution of the committee, finding that all of the year 4 2020-2021 Measure U proceeds were appropriated and expended in accordance with the parcel tax. So I personally today, and in representing the Measure U Oversight Committee, present to you their report.
Thank you so much, Janet. Really appreciate, first of all, your kind words and reminding us all to take some time with family and friends this holiday season. So that's a good reminder for all. Thank you for the very thorough report. I always really appreciate the work of the committee and your review and the report that's given to us. And I guess what I'd like to do is see if my fellow board members have any questions for Janet or any comments.
I mean, I joined the
Mhm.
committee, and so I get to see them in action, and it is definitely a thorough review, and it's really nice to have that set of feedback of like, here's another perspective of looking at it, because we hear a lot of these items get discussed a lot, and we understand how they fit into each of the priorities of the parcel tax, and having that oversight to make sure that everybody that sees these approved plans understands how they're spent. I find that really helpful, having that lens in there. I also, in the report, there's a narrative there at the beginning, and this got some discussion in our last, from each principal, this got some discussion in our last meeting around, that gives some context around how the funds are used, not just strictly what the items are and how they fit in. And one of the takeaways that I took from there that sort of speaks to who this community is that they had a discussion about, how much extra work is this putting on the principals, the site administrators for it. So it really isn't just hey, we're here to get our job done. I think Janet's thanks that she started this whole statement off kind of exemplifies it, but to see it also in action, I just wanted to share that story that, they look at it and they think, okay, we understand that there's a lot of work on their plate, and this one doesn't have to be top of their line to sort of look at that. And I think it just speaks to the people that are on the committee, and then the new chair for the committee too. So.
And I would also like to thank the committee and Janet for her kind words. I know that it takes time away from all your other duties and volunteer work that you all do and your families. So again, thank you for all the hard work. It is a very thorough report, as my colleague has stated. So happy holidays to you as well. Spend it just as you said, and thank you for recognizing the hard work of the staff.
You're very welcome.
So Janet, I'll just echo the thanks to you and all the committee members. You know, it's a lot of extra time on your part, and it's a, you know, volunteer position that you guys have offered your time and expertise to step up and make sure that the Measure U funds are being spent appropriately. And it's really important for our community members and our taxpayers to know that we are spending that money appropriately that they've entrusted us with. So really appreciate all your work and the committee's work to put oversight on that. So thank you.
I will pass on all of your thanks to the committee members. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Thank you.
And I like to say the same thing. I echo what everyone said. Definitely is a big commitment. It is a volunteer work, and you guys make the district make sure that everything's running smoothly. So I appreciate everyone's time.
All right. Thank you so much again, Janet. And I do appreciate you letting the committee know the comments from the board, and we appreciate you in the community. All right. Okay. Have a good evening.
Be well, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. We are on to the next agenda item. We have our bond program consent items. Do I have a motion to approve? Oh, and this does include the 8.2.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that was Maria making the motion, Cecilia seconding. A roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells,
Aye.
Trustee Lawson,
Aye.
Trustee Marquez,
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Solcom,
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. All right, we have a bond program action item 8.1, which also has a resolution as part of it.
Does anyone have any questions?
All right, it doesn't look like there was any questions. It was a very thorough board item, so thank you so much. And do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Oh.
Oops.
Okay, Mike made the motion. I think Janet made the second. And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells,
Aye.
Trustee Lawson,
Aye.
Trustee Marquez,
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Solcom,
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. Okay, thank you, bond team. Really appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays to you
very much.
All righty. Okay, we are on to 9.1. Oh, you know, it's funny on my agenda. I have 9.1 twice, but it's probably different. Okay. 9.1 is a discussion on district transfer students for the Mandarin immersion program. And why don't I turn it over to you, Dr. Baker?
Thank you, President McAvoy. So this evening we have members from the Mandarin immersion program, parents who are here to discuss the interdistrict transfers of siblings that now exist, and also to discuss any other transfers that may want to come to join the program. You have members from the parent group that will be giving a presentation, and this presentation I believe was sent to all of you earlier, and I want to thank them for the presentation. It started out being a large presentation, but they brought it down to 14 slides. And after the presentation, then President McAvoy will take a poll of the board and see how long that discussion that you want to have on what next steps would be. In the information that I gave not only to the board, but to the parents, they have up to 20 minutes for the presentation, but then President McAvoy, you will determine with the other board members the length of discussion that you would like to have, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes regarding this. So I believe that the parents who are presenting this tonight have all been given panelist status. Let me get out of my agenda, and I believe so. Yes, they're on. So Kyle, do you have the presentation, if I'm not mistaken?
I do. I'll bring it up right now.
Thank you. And Megan, are you the person that is starting off?
Actually, Julia Fang is going to start off the presentation, so she could start.
Okay, and is Julia here?
Have to move Julia over.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't see Julia.
Oh, there she is. Thank you, Kyle.
Perfect.
Okay. Do we have all the folks who need to have access to speaking have that access at this point?
There's Megan, there's Debbie, there's Julia. Is there anyone else?
Probably Pauline and Omalis Villanueva.
Okay.
So, and just let you guys know, Omalis had intended to give a testimonial to the board in Spanish. And so we really tried to keep this to 20 minutes. She might put us slightly over. But we want to be respectful of your time.
And I think I saw that Pauline is not going to speak. So that's what she just said. Oh no, maybe you're saying you don't have speaker status yet. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, but I do know. Thanks.
All right, welcome. Why don't you go ahead and get started? Thanks.
Okay, so good evening, Dr. Baker and Board Trustees. My name is Julia Fang. I have 3 kids in the MI program. As an active parent, I've served on the Lcap Steering Committee, School Site Council, PTA, MI Advisory, and hold numerous other roles on campus. In 2014, I was one of the district parents who requested that RCSD offer the MI program to benefit our community's children. Today, we're presenting an update regarding MI program health. As you know, our MI program started as a partnership between community parents and the district. As it grew, parents enrolled students and continue to support the program on the ground in ways big and small. Next slide, please. So today we're sharing our concerns about the program health. Specifically, we're discussing issues regarding stabilization of the MI program, and we'll share the perspectives of parents, administration, and staff. Next slide, please. So research and experience have shown that dual immersion language programs is the most effective at teaching a second language and culture. Long-term program success depends on a good balance of fluent and emergent Mandarin speakers in the cohort and a minimum of 3 classes per grade. In our beautiful district with diversity in many areas, including socioeconomic and cultural heritage, that leads to an even broader range of educational needs in the earlier grades. Therefore, having a higher percentage of fluent Mandarin speaking students will support teacher workload and shore up quality. Since we stopped accepting interdistrict transfers, we've seen a significant decline in students with parents who are Mandarin and Chinese bilingual or biliterate. Please note that pre-pandemic, the 3rd grade class had a higher percentage of fluent speakers. However, during the pandemic, some parents of fluent Mandarin speakers concerns about inadequate exposure to English, so they transferred out. Next slide. There seems to be a common belief in the district that the program is healthy and doing well, even post prolonged distance learning. A quick back of the napkin calculation of current enrollment numbers over enrollment numbers for that same cohort in its first year of MI enrollment show a decidedly different picture. On average, we see 35% attrition across all grades. This is the result of the collective effects of North Star, the competitive housing market, entry of new MI programs in our broader region, among other factors. All of these effects are further exacerbated by the pandemic, which still continues. Now, the chart shows extremely concerning attrition in all grades except kinder, 2nd, and 4th. The latter 2 grades have been supplemented in an unsustainable manner by work from parent volunteers. So once attrition happens, it creates a momentum on its own, but it's not in the direction we wish for. If we examine reasons for attrition, moves out of state or area are largely unavoidable. And while we should definitely investigate ways to retain more students in the program, With current attrition rates, it's clear we achieved the best result by middle school if we'd started with a larger buffer batch of students in the earlier grades to begin with. From second grade onward, students have to be proficient enough in Mandarin to enroll. This is largely because insufficient Mandarin proficiency grades affects the student's ability to learn subject matter, as a large percentage of instruction is provided in Mandarin by design, in order for students to be positioned to reach high levels of fluency by 8th grade, our program's terminal goal. While we might be able to backfill some available spots in upper grade classes, and believe me, we try hard, it's practically impossible to replace all students who leave with qualified students, much less from a pool of only in-district students. Next slide, please. Kyle? Okay, so sad to say that our program's current situation is dire. Let me talk about how concerning issues are showing up and why that matters to program health. Broadly speaking, we bucket a number of these under the low morale section. We've discussed the high attrition rates, which have been impacted by the pandemic. While the pandemic challenges us all, it's incredibly difficult to be immersed in another language during COVID, particularly in remote learning, which we did for over one entire school year. The pandemic also exacerbated the stresses of parents supporting their children in the program. Because of our program's origin, there is an unstated expectation that parents a stopgap measure between program need and available resources. There is a pervasive and embedded belief in stereotypes across the district that our program's okay and our families are fine. And we're shamed and receive backlash whenever we ask for much needed support. Because of the immense lift needed to sustain and stay on track with curricular pacing while learning a second language, we've lost students who were otherwise doing well pre-pandemic. Much of what has happened has created low morale in students and parents. And the reason that matters is that the hardest hit group within MI are our underserved students, because they have few other alternatives for meeting their learning needs that aren't already met by conventional methods. Our teachers have been heroically doing what they could to provide customized learning that meet students at their levels and regularly work until 10 p.m. at nights to prepare for student needs. We're different from other programs because ours is young, and we often have teachers who are new to our school, and teachers spend a significant proportion of their workday creating lessons from scratch. Any unmet student learning needs has to be backfilled by parents, and that's just not reasonable in a program like ours that's open to all, regardless of family heritage, language fluency, and economic status. So unfortunately, we see our underserved students bearing the lion's share of consequences. When we look at broader MI competitive landscape in our region, we also face increased competition recruiting for teachers and also for students. Thus far, because of the strength of our community and the excellent work of our teachers, we've been able to hold our own in recruiting teachers and students. But until our program is stable in its enrollment numbers and underserved students' needs are adequately met, we will need continued targeted investment in the program. And now Megan will share some common myths we encounter whenever we look for ways to shore up program stability.
You could advance me to the next slide. That'd be great, Kyle. Thank you. We've been deeply affected by bias. I wanted to remind our Redwood City community that these following arguments against our program, which we commonly hear, are in fact racist. These arguments are grounded in white supremacy, and they are against the district mission and values. We commonly hear that educational policies are not fair unless they are uniform. The MI program has been expected to grow and survive on the same rules and policies of choice programs with extensive waiting lists and debugged programming and curriculum when learning Mandarin is reported to be 6 times harder than learning Spanish, and enrollment is declining. Furthermore, equity used as a zero-sum policy is precisely the wedge that white communities and white racist structures have historically imposed on communities of color, and we know that the district is against that. We often hear that all MI families are rich and privileged, and the things that have been said to me have really blown my mind over the past couple of years. What is true is that we have all types of families. When you say that, you're making an assumption that is biased. More importantly, when you make this argument, you're limiting the participation ability of families like Omelis and her sister-in-law, Teresa, who left the program due to not being supported during the pandemic because they're being made invisible. We often hear that Asian students don't need any support because they're all high achieving. There's a nuance here that really begs discussion. We do see that in this district, Asian students as a whole are performing academically better than their peers. However, Asian children routinely suffer because of the expectations, and the ones who don't perform well have difficulty getting help. Furthermore, high grades are a buffer to being powerless to American racism. For instance, one of our teachers shared that her parents' response to racial bullying as a child was to tell her to just get an A, and then their words can't hurt you. And this is something that I see in my community a great deal. So when you see scores that show higher academic achievement, you can also look at that as a metric of pain and a cultural attempt at buffering it. A school's responsibility is not only to a student's math and English or Mandarin scores, but also their social emotional well-being. Model minority myths result in MI students, especially the underserved students, receiving insufficient support. And we look forward to further partnering with former Mayor Jeff G. and the San Mateo API Caucus to bring more education to Redwood City, because these the comments that we've heard have been incredibly painful to the community. And to speak to that, we'd like it if Omelis Villanueva could be given the floor to speak to how the model minority myth has affected her family in particular. Thank you.
Buenas noches, ¿sí me escucha? Bueno, mi nombre es Omelis Villanueva. Yo soy madre de seis niños. Mi hija mayor se graduó del programa de inmersión al español. Mi hija de 15 se graduó de North Star. Y tengo una hija en 8º grado que actualmente asiste a la escuela de North Star. Tengo 3 hijos en el programa de inmersión al mandarín. Uno en 4º, otro en 2º y una niña en kinder. Cuando supimos del programa, pensamos que el distrito poseía un programa que era un regalo para la educación de nuestros hijos más pequeños. Y decidimos que era una oportunidad extraordinaria y que teníamos que tomarla. Y que ellos llegarían a ser trilingües. Inicialmente fue un reto enorme, porque no teníamos idea si iba a funcionar. Con la ayuda de la maestra y el traductor de Google, pasamos el primer año con muy buenos resultados. Gratamente, mi hija va ahora en 4º grado, y ella ha tenido una experiencia increíble, al punto que el hecho de ver a su hermana menor aprendiendo mandarín fue una inspiración para que mis hijas mayores, ahora en high school, decidieran tomar una clase de mandarín. Sin embargo, para mi hijo en 2º grado ha sido una experiencia muy diferente. Estaba en su primer año en kinder cuando COVID surgió y se cerraron las escuelas. Él tuvo que continuar con su aprendizaje en línea, algo sumamente difícil para él. Y en ese momento yo me preguntaba, ¿puede un niño de 5 años aprender un lenguaje en inmersión a distancia? Realmente durante la pandemia le dedicábamos alrededor de 20 horas por semana para tratar de apoyarlo. Pero fue insuficiente porque nosotros no sabemos mandarín. Y mi hija, que entonces cursaba el 3er grado, no podía ayudarlo porque ella tenía sus propios retos tratando de continuar aprendiendo por Zoom. Y aunque sus maestras dieron todo de sí mismas para brindarle el apoyo necesario, les fue imposible detenerse y regresarse para sacar adelante a niños como mi hijo, que realmente estaban batallando para aprender durante la pandemia. De hecho, mi sobrina, que también está en 2º grado ahora, tuvo que dejar el programa al mandarín durante la pandemia, porque para ella fue muy difícil y su familia tampoco pudo ayudarla. La fundación que se supone se construye durante kinder y 1er grado quedó terriblemente fracturada debido al cierre de las escuelas y al limitado apoyo que las circunstancias permitían. Muchas veces nosotros como padres hemos estado al punto de rendirnos, pero cada vez que consideramos la posibilidad de sacar a nuestro hijo del programa, mi hijo es el que nos dice que él realmente quiere aprender mandarín. Entonces, nosotros seguimos adelante, siempre diciéndole que si él así lo desea, así va a ser. Desafortunadamente, hasta el día de hoy, no hemos visto el apoyo que realmente mi hijo necesita. Y es que mi hijo parece muchas veces invisible, porque los datos muestran que la mayoría de estudiantes en el programa de mandarín están avanzando. Pero mi hijo se va quedando atrás y es muy desalentador saber que tu hijo quiere seguir adelante, pero tú como padre no tienes los recursos para pagar un tutor que le ayude. Muchas personas piensan que todos en el programa somos gente rica. La realidad es que no es así. Ya vemos familias como la nuestra, con recursos limitados. No pueden generalizar y así limitar el apoyo que se necesita para mejorar la educación de varios de los estudiantes en el programa de mandarín que están urgentemente necesitados de más apoyo académico. Ha sido tan impactante la situación para mi hijo que la semana pasada llegó a casa diciendo que es el más tonto de su clase, porque él no está al nivel académico y aún no domina el mandarín al nivel que se requiere ahora que están de regreso en el salón de clases. Su autoestima simplemente se ha visto profundamente afectada. En realidad, mi hijo es un niño muy inteligente, que le encanta la ciencia, que ama aprender, pero necesita más apoyo por parte del distrito para seguir adelante. Y es que aprender mandarín no es algo que sea tan sencillo, y aún más después de los estragos que COVID ha causado en la educación. Es muy triste que al generalizar a las familias del programa como ricas, con muchos recursos, o tal vez como un programa sin necesidades, dejen a nuestros hijos fuera de las prioridades como estudiantes con necesidades para alcanzar estar a nivel de grado. Y yo a veces me pregunto, ¿habrá alguna manera de remediar el problema? Y es que, como familias que no somos chinos, nos sentimos abandonadas porque no entramos en el grupo de los que supuestamente tienen los recursos para complementar la educación de sus hijos fuera de la escuela. Pero tampoco entramos dentro del grupo que pudiera tener más recursos a su disposición. Sin embargo, y a pesar de la situación tan desalentadora con mi hija más pequeña de 5 años, asiste actualmente al kinder en el programa de mandarín. Y es que nosotros como padres sabemos que el programa es una excelente opción para ella, principalmente porque está dentro del distrito escolar y es gratuito. Para niños como mis hijos que vienen de una familia hispana de bajos recursos, es una oportunidad única en la vida. Y es que llegar a ser trilingüe les brindará más oportunidades y les permitirá tener éxito en la vida. Pero será mejor si reciben todo el apoyo necesario. Es por eso que hoy yo comparto con ustedes mi experiencia, esperando que la consideren y no generalicen tanto. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Kyle, if you could advance to the next slide and the next one after that. Thank you so much. These are the asks that we have to provide stability to a program in need, and we'll go into them in more detail. And if you could please give the floor to Pauline Wang. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I think Kyle, we need to go further down. It's not the slide further down. Okay, yeah. So hi, thank you and good evening, Dr. Baker and the Board of Trustees. My name is Pauline Wang. I'm the mother of a second grader and an incoming kinder. We have been Redwood City residents since 2017. I sat on the MI recruiting committee and is a representative of the MI program on the Superintendent's Advisory Council. I'm here today to express my strong support to grandfather in the 9 interdistrict siblings to the MI program. So first of all, we want to keep families together. These 6 interdistrict families are valuable members of the MI communities through their tireless support in volunteering, donation, and community building. Denying these 9 students would mean to lose these families who are an integral part of our community. And it's not unprecedented for a school to grandfather in younger siblings when the districts reach to basic aid. Mountain View Wismar School District grandfathering all younger siblings of interdistrict families in 2009 for exactly the same reason, to keep families together. Secondly, based on our current survey of prospective students, we have sufficient interest to open between 2 to 3 kinder classes every year and 1 TK for the upcoming school years. will have enough space to accommodate these 9 interdistrict siblings. They're spreading out between school year 2022 to 2027. So that blue box table that you see on the bottom shows the percentage of interdistrict sibling as a percentage of the total grade class size, which is minuscule. And lastly, if you look at these 9 interdistrict siblings, they're not taking away classroom seats from in-district students as they rank lower in acceptance priority. They're simply filling out empty classroom seats, which is much needed as we face attrition in upper grades. A ballpark estimate for the variable cost associated with these students will be between $2,700 to $9,000 a year. And that is just a fraction of the district's $106 million annual budget. With that, I'll turn to Megan.
Thank you, Kyle.
Slide, please, and then Megan. Yeah.
So in the interest of time, I'm just going to skip through things a little bit more quickly. There was widespread precedent for using committed district transfer students to establish MI programs. That's widespread. It's never been done that they, in a district like ours, that it is limited and then the program has been successful. And yes, we made a decision 2 years ago to counter to that convention. It has gone poorly. Our neediest students are most impacted by the lack of language models. Kyle, you can go to the next slide. So we asked that the district commits to the 3rd kinder class in the first round to prevent losing families to private school forever and to put that grade on solid footing. The point here is that you committed to this middle school, which is the right thing to do, as students that are underserved will have the best value on the effort that they put in middle school. But if we don't have children in those classes to make it to those grades, then it's going to be that the children like Omalisa's children that suffer the most. You can advance to the next slide. Just kind of skipping through things in the interest of time. And just to let you know, I have a 2nd grader and a kindergartner. They're both in school with Omalisa's children. We are like family. My kids are in a choir with her. My daughter was in the same reading level as Nathan. And it pains us that, we cannot serve Nathan better. And we hear the stories that she tells us, and it's very difficult. Out of all the things that we feel pain for, the fact that we are not able to lift up these students and give them a better experience in this program, and that we're losing them. We lost her sister-in-law, Teresa, who my daughter was very good friends with her daughter, and she dropped out of the program because it was too hard in pandemic. And this is something that we really need to fix. So our 4th ask is to address the needs of the underserved students that are struggling in Mandarin or English with continued funding and support. The underserved Latino families currently in our program are absolute heroes to take this on in order to open doors for their children and achieve trilingualism. It is difficult and they're amazing. And we want to make sure that when they take this chance, we're making an improvement in their life and not signing their kids up for hardship and disappointment. We'll get the hang of it over time. In the meantime, we could just use a little bit more hand-holding and attention to our baby program in these families. Next slide. One more thing that I wanted to add was that there's programs that we can apply to retain an experienced Mandarin teacher. For instance, Star Talk and the Teachers of Critical Languages program were implemented in order to support the national mandate for Chinese language. These teacher programs would be best applied to supporting the underserved, and the Teachers of Critical Languages program has reopened applications due January 7th, so there's still time to apply for next year, and this would be a great means of support and alternative to public funding. You can advance to, so I'm just not going to read this because we're out of time. And I had one more statement, but maybe I can be granted time in my commentary to read it. And then with that, I think if we could turn it over to Catherine Rivera to make a statement and talk.
Good evening. Thank you, parents, for your presentation and for the time and commitment you've dedicated to put such a thorough and well-researched presentation. It was fun to be able to share some of the data with you. I'm Catherine Rivera, and I am the principal of Orion Alternative School. And I have been the instructional leader as the Mandarin Immersion principal for the past 7 years when we first started our Mandarin Immersion program. And I'm here tonight to advocate and support for not only admitting our siblings, which I think is critical to keeping our families together. It's the right thing to do. Allowing not only our siblings of our current families but also to accept out-of-district students starting next fall for the reasons that parents already outlined. So I'm not going to say everything that our parents just said, because it was said so beautifully and presented in such a clear and concise way that really explains our family's experiences and, most importantly, our students' experiences. I also just want to quickly, on behalf of my colleague and rising administrator, Miss Winnie Wong, who has been a teacher at our school for the past 5 years. So I want to quickly just read a quick note from her experience and perspective as a teacher in a Mandarin immersion program. As the Mandarin immersion instructional coach, I feel grateful and lucky to support a team and learn with such wonderful teachers who are professional, creative, and passionate about bilingual education and cultural diversity. They're caring and always they take initiatives to continuously improve their teaching practices to meet the needs of all students. Ms. Wong says, I fully support the petition of keeping out of district siblings and recruiting out-of-district students as we expand our Mandarin immersion program. I, Winnie Wong, used to teach the first Mandarin immersion combination class until they graduated in the 5th grade. There are pros and cons of smaller class sizes. I witnessed the limitation of having a small class size and the impact of students' social, emotional health. When I taught the combination class, there were only 3 boys. They preferred to play together, had difficulty trying to extend their friendships to others. However, when a conflict came up, the students had a difficult time. They expressed that they were comfortable interacting with others, but I was having challenges making new friends in such a small group. I, Winnie Wong, I want to express my interest in keeping the out-of-district siblings and recruiting out-of-district students in our Mandarin immersion program, and they can help expand the Mandarin immersion program and continue to add cultural diversity, which enriches our students' learning experiences in the school. That's Miss Winnie Wong, one of our teachers here in the Mandarin immersion program. So trustees and all of our community, and Dr. Baker and our cabinet members here, I want to again express my support for keeping students. Siblings should be together. I think it's the right thing to do. We encouraged and invited our families a couple of years ago to please apply to the Redwood City School District. Please join us in our growing our program. Now that their siblings are here, I believe that we should keep our siblings together and as well continue to expand our program and support all of our students in Redwood City School District by continuing to accept out of district. Thank you very much. And thank you again, parents.
All right. Well, thank you very much to the parent presenters, and thank you, Principal Rivera. Really appreciate the comments. I did want to just say for the audience, we did receive quite a bit of materials from the Mandarin immersion parents, and I'm sure the board read all of those. So we actually had many more slides than were presented tonight, along with testimonials and a petition. We also have received the last week or so, and actually prior to that, a number of emails not supporting this proposal, just so you do know. So those are coming in from the community as well. So we have those supporting and those not supporting the proposal. So I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with sort of correspondence that's been coming in the last week as well. But I did want to say it's clear that, you know, the Mandarin immersion parents and our principal are very passionate about the program. And I hope you know how much our board and school district supports the Mandarin immersion program for sure. And we're so proud of our schools of choice program and all the offerings that we have across the district, including the Mandarin immersion. So clearly your passion comes out, similar to other parents in the district and the passion that comes from them and their schools. So it's always good to hear from a school site that has passion around their program. So what I wanted to do is, we are at, let's see, we've spent about almost a half an hour on this. And I do know we have a lengthy board agenda. So we did want to put some parameters on this discussion. It is a discussion item. We can always bring it back for future discussion or an action later. But we did want to give time tonight for the discussion on this. So what I'd like to do is ask my fellow board members kind of just a process question. I certainly want to allow our board members to ask any questions they might have of folks who spoke tonight, or of our superintendent or Principal Rivera or anyone else, any comments. I don't know if we want to put a parameter on that. I can kind of watch the time for us, but I do want to make sure that our board members have an opportunity to speak on this subject if they would like to. So any comments? I can make up a number, or we can just comment and kind of see how it goes, and I can watch the time. I mostly, we're trying to be mindful of staff and community members that attend our board meetings, and we try for them not to go too late each time. So. All right, so it doesn't sound, I don't think there's some strong preference from my group. I'm not getting it right away. So why don't we go ahead and just make the rounds, and if you'd like to ask any questions or make a comment, that would be great. Give any feedback to our superintendent or to the principal, parents. I'll just open the floor, and then I do have some comments to say as well that I'm happy to give when the time is my turn.
I had just a few things that I wanted to just clarify at first, because some of the material I think has been changing between when we first got it to where it is here. But and this might be for Dr. Baker, or this might be for Principal Rivera, but how many, like, what is the target number for kindergarten classes? How many are there now? Are they getting fully enrolled by RCSD? One of the earlier versions of the slide said the target was, the ask was to have 2, that there was only 1 kindergarten class, but now I see that it's 3 here as the minimum being asked for. So can you help me understand what is the program size now? Are we taking everybody that wants it? Is there a wait list, or do we not have enough classrooms for it? I don't have a good sense. I thought I had that under control, but I actually don't understand. So maybe I can understand. I think you understand the gist of this question. I have a couple more, but I'm going to mute right now.
And this is Catherine. So we currently have 2 kindergarten classes, and they are our class size at 24. And we don't have any families on the wait list for the kindergarten program. So we were able to accept everybody that wanted to come in, even after even after the school of choice closed. But our goal is 3, because we do have attrition, and filling those seats through the years as students, through attrition for multiple reasons that were presented in the presentation tonight. It's really hard to fill after 2nd grade, because
right,
you need, as you understand,
dual immersion, of course. And so then the ask here is to have a 3rd kindergarten class of out of district students, or is the thought that, that's what I was trying to figure out.
They would add 2. They would add to the current. They would help grow it to a 3rd.
Okay.
So something that also, just a little background information, we've also had in the past couple of years to help backfill spaces to really get kindergarten classes. We've accepted TK age students into the kindergarten class.
Okay.
And so we're able to, our goal is to have a TK class that's more appropriate for our TK age kids, that is separate from a kindergarten class.
Okay, great. And then, go ahead.
And so, Mike, so what I have right now, as far as information, this is as of today. So right now for next year, there are 42 kindergartners registered for the Mandarin Immersion Program. That's as of today. And there are 13 that are registered for TK. Now the TK, Liz, and I'm looking at Liz, because there's that whole new push with the governor's initiative regarding TK. So that 13 can actually be a classroom, because we start out, I keep forgetting these numbers because they change every year. So Liz, is that they start out 1 to
12.
1 to 12. That's starting next year. And then the year after that, I think it goes 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they've got right now 42 kindergartners. That's 2 classrooms. and they've got the TK with the 13 in it, with a teacher, which will get the dollars for those 13, provided they show up. So that's as of today. And in first, there's one additional person that has applied for first grade for next year. You have one, but that's today, just to give you some numbers of where we are.
No, that's helpful. That's helpful. Another question, kind of in that vein. One of the common threads that has been coming through on a lot of the communication is around the true cost of an interdistrict student. And we've seen different numbers kind of applied in. And of course, there's a difference between, it's a class of 18 and we just want to put 2 or 3 more in to keep it robust versus having to start a new class. But what is that number? Yeah. So
when you're looking at kindergarten, let's take TK out of it, because those numbers are, the state has those numbers, as Liz and I we're going back and forth earlier. Kindergarten, first and second, we have determined that if you're in the Redwood City School District, it's going to be 1 teacher to 25 students. So that's what we're aiming for. And if you're, say, you have your, whatever school you're at, say you're at Hoover, and you have your school where it does not have that breakdown, they ended up with, I think, 2.5 Ks this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they have 1 TK and 2.5 because the numbers didn't work as well. And for us to keep within ratio and also to keep financially in check, they have 2.5 Ks. And so does TAF. TAF has another 2.5 Ks this year because they didn't have that numbers needed to make the total 25 for that 3rd grade class, that 3rd kindergarten class.
Right. I guess what I was wondering is, like, is there we sort of walk around with what a per student funding cost is. And the presentation here and sort of the argument that's been, the presentation here is saying that per student funding cost is kind of the amortized cost across the whole district for a student, but adding in the marginal cost of adding in an interdistrict student to a classroom that can support it is not as high. I think they quoted that the siblings, for example, would be, a few $1,000s of additional costs to the school district. What I'm trying to figure out is that an accurate number? Should we be looking at it at the $16,000 per student cost to come in? Like where?
And Priscilla's on the call. So Priscilla, if I'm saying this incorrectly.
And if we don't have it, that's fine. But I mean, that would be something that I think would help in future discussions to be able to get that. So if we don't have it tonight, that's totally fine. I just wanted to say that I think that's a point that needs to be clarified, at least for me, in this discussion, because I hear it both ways
So how we plan and how we chart the finances for this district, no matter where you come from, if you're an interdistrict student, you're still considered X amount of dollars is going to be spent. And Priscilla, if you want to pipe in on that, that's fine. And if you need the figure, we can get you the figure. It's coming to you next week on the first interim, but if you need it, we can get it to you.
Yeah, so based on what we have on our adopted budget, our per pupil spending right now is $18,000. So we are working on our first interim presentation, but that number was based on adopted budget.
So we're when a kid comes in, it's 18,000 for that kid. Now that's not including if there's other resources that are needed, then that's a whole other ball game, and we'll have to get you those figures. Does that help?
Yeah, that does help, because that is one of the discussion points that I see as a common thread there, and knowing how that fits is going to be important. I mean, there's other things beyond just the money here that we're talking about, particularly with siblings and keeping families together, and the program. I get that, but that is a common thread, and so I wanted to make sure that there was some clarity there. Those were the two things that from the presentation tonight that I wanted to just get clarified. Thanks.
And I have a few questions as well. The first one would be Dr. Baker or perhaps Jorge. What are we doing as a district to advertise for the Mandarin program? And if so, how often are we doing this?
I'm keeping my mic off because sometimes I start coughing and I don't want you to hear the cough. So for all of our schools, but especially our schools of choice, what Jorge has developed is a plan, and the principals really work very closely with their communities on what this plan will be and how it will be put out into the community that this program does exist. So for example, I'm going to use Adelante Selby. What Mr. Cedar does, he works very closely with his staff. He works very closely with his office staff. And then he works very closely with his, I believe it's his PTO, it's not a PTA, on how to go out and recruit other students. What's best for Warren right now is he really is looking for English speakers as opposed to Spanish speakers, because with a dual immersion, you have to have that 50-50 piece. And so what sometimes limits him is not being able to find those people. But by him going out and working with his staff, working with the teachers and the PTO, along with Jorge, and getting information out to the community about the program. Now, in Catherine's case, and I'm going to let you, Catherine, take this over. I know it's yourself and the parent group that basically does all the different types of advertising for the program to get it out and about into the community.
Cecilia, this is Catherine. So for our Mandarin immersion program, we have an extremely active parent group, and we have a Mandarin immersion advisory committee. And within that, we have a parent recruitment group who are super active and work really hard at going out to the public. They go out to preschools, out to libraries. So we were able to do a lot more pre-pandemic at festivals. We've had parent booths set up at downtown Salsa Festival, as well as the STEAM Festival and the Lunar New Year Festival, and the parents would be actively, openly recruiting. Parents put advertisements in local newspapers. Parents, and a huge component is word of mouth. So parents work towards word of mouth. So with a parent committee, the parents do a lot of the work and then help to promote our school-wide tours. Pre-pandemic, Jorge participated a lot with us in going out to the different events that were held in Redwood City. And Jorge would help with videos. Jorge did a lot of work. We were able to do more pre-pandemic. So Jorge has been instrumental. But it's really a lot of parents that are hugely supporting.
And Cecilia, we used to meet RCSD nights. I don't know if you ever attended them as a parent, and they were big activities that we had. And we started at McKinley having them, where all the schools would be represented. Principals would be there, vice principals, teachers, some parents would be there, and they would definitely talk about the program, and parents would come to like each of the settings where the schools were in the MUB of McKinley. The last one we did was, I believe, at Fair Oaks or Hoover. I don't remember which. But then the pandemic hit and we didn't continue doing them.
Okay, great, thank you. And that was my question, because I know with some of the emails that we received, we read that a lot of those parents are feeling like they're burned out. And so that was why I wanted to find out more information about recruiting. And then the other question I have is, and this would be, I guess, maybe for Catherine or one of the parents that presented, what are some of the things that the Mandarin program has asked for that they didn't get? Apparently they're asking for resources, and it seems like they're not getting it and they're not getting the help they need.
I don't see them in this right here. So I'll speak as the principal, but I don't want to speak for the parents. One of the things that the parents have done is they were great at advocating for, we have a Mandarin language intervention instructor this year, part-time. So that's new. So I want to thank Dr. Baker for that. I also wanted, the parents are working hard in providing extra tutoring opportunities, which is something that the school is not able to provide. So for example, when we've had after school programs, we just haven't had the funding nor the staffing for after school tutoring. So parents have done that. They do things on weekends. During the pandemic, they did tutoring online. And then summer school is another one that Megan just put in the chat, that no opportunities for immersion summer schools in the Redwood City School District.
Great, thank you. And then I wanted to find out, President McAvoy, are we asking questions and then making any comments, or do we want to go round of questions and then comments? Because I do have some comments besides my question.
Yeah, I think it's fine to do questions and comments, or you can just do your questions now and we can finish up and then go and do comments. So I'm fine either way. I do think, it's a discussion item, so it's an opportunity to ask questions as well as make any comments to our staff or the parent community about the request, about the proposal. So Janet, Marie, I don't know if you have any other questions that you want to ask before Cecilia makes comments, and Mike may have some additional comments. I know, Mike, you asked some questions.
Yeah, my questions were along what Cecilia was asking as well. I know the parents have been very active, and like all of us, we're all tired and just want this pandemic to be over. I did have the question about the resources, because I believe it was Julia who was presenting, who said something like they were, God, I can't remember her exact words, but basically they were not getting it. And I just wanted to know who was it that was making them feel so bad for asking. So that was one of the questions I had.
My questions have been asked already. I just wanted to ask if we could get the translation for the Omalis's Spanish presentation emailed to us. I think we ran out of time for that. I followed a lot of it, but I didn't get all of it. So I'd like to have the translation emailed if we could, please.
All right, so yeah, I agree. We need to get the translation. I was in your same boat, Janet. I think I got a lot of it, but I'm sure I missed some of the nuances, not being a completely bilingual, biliterate. So let's see, Maria, your question. I'm sorry, what was your question again? I think you had one that wasn't answered yet. Something about
right.
Or, yeah.
So when Julia was presenting, she made a comment, and I'm sorry, my internet was like fading in and out, but something about they go and ask for resources and they're made to feel bad or something like that. And I wanted to know, what were they asking for and who was making them feel bad for asking?
So maybe Kyle, we can move Julia back to the panelists so we could hear from her, or give her speaking ability again. Great. Okay, Julia, you're able. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, so thanks for allowing me to speak. So I think, there's just like an environment in which we feel very unwelcome to actually make requests. So for instance, when we're at school site council, when we want to discuss concerns about after school programs on campus, Mandarin immersion language after school for students and their needs, we get unwelcome kind of commentary about how at least at one point we've received commentary how, you know, the speaker was tired and didn't want to deal with looking at or understanding the needs of those students. And so there are little comments here and there, but in a lot of different forums, we get shamed, not directly, but when we bring things up, it becomes a disability Olympics kind of discussion, where as soon as we say something, then there's a discussion about how poor students really need a lot more. And so the implication is that we're privileged and therefore we shouldn't say anything because it's just not something that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. That helps me.
All right, thank you, Julia. So I think I had some of the similar questions that were already asked. I did want to ask, because one of my concerns, of course, you know, and I think probably all the trustees have a similar question, is if we were to approve the siblings as an example, so to accept the out-of-district siblings, what kind of precedent does that set? And would we have other schools and other student parent groups that would come forward and ask for a similar exception to the decision that we made already about out-of-district students? And so one question I had was, Dr. Baker or Priscilla, do we know how many out-of-district students we currently have in our district? I've seen numbers floated around like 220, 240. I don't know what the current number is now.
All right, so at this point in time, the district currently has 168 students with inter-district transfers.
Okay, so it's gone down a little bit from where we were at.
And then I have the breakdown. I have the breakdown by school.
Okay, okay.
And I can send that to you all. I can give
right.
you
I think that's something that would probably be useful. And I imagine you're taking notes of things that you can kind of send out to the board members as we think about this. But I do think, you know, just from a precedent stand, I totally get, you know, the equity conversation and the specific needs for the Mandarin immersion program. And then it's a specialty program and it's harder for students to come in and out of that program relative to maybe a neighborhood school. So I certainly appreciate that. I think we would need to look at, though, the 168 students and how many more that could potentially be, because then that starts to, you know, it's not just 9 siblings, but it could be, you know, 100 siblings or 200 siblings or something like that. So that certainly starts to be real money potentially, right? So, and I do know that some of the emails and phone calls that we got, phone calls I got, the emails tended to go to all the board members. So I think you saw those, was concern about the resources involved with accepting out-of-district students relative to how it impacts other students. And we have a lot of needs in our district, some of which are getting unmet right now. We know we have a lot of needs. We have a lot of, and it is very much resource dependent. So although I appreciate that the presentation and certainly materials we have been given, it is about sort of putting individual students in a classroom that's already in existence. It's bigger than that if you start looking at precedent and that sort of thing. So it's just something that I think we'd need a little more information on, Dr. Baker, at least I would. And I see noddings of heads of my colleagues. So I think that would be important. So Celia, did you have some, I have a few other comments, but I think, did you have any additional comments before I?
Yeah, so, and then I wrote them down because I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget. And I would like to start by saying that I totally understand the parents of those kids affected by this. They're definitely looking for the best interest of their child. The way I see it, though, is that we as a board need to look out for the benefit of our already Redwood City school kids. And we're talking 6,000 plus students. We're talking students that are not reading at grade level, have issues with math at times. We're talking about English learners. We're talking about kids with trauma because of the pandemic, emotional disturbed. And although we are only talking about 9 siblings, at this point, we also have to think about, again, the other, 168 intra-district students that could, again, we could set this precedent where those families would like to have the same opportunity. And to me, what's fair for one should be fair for all. And so we have received, again, many emails, whether for or against this topic. One of the emails mentioned that a Pioneer family left to North Star because of the tiny class size and because the Mandarin level sounded like it was not at a level they wanted. I understand that the top performing students have left the Mandarin program. The families left because uncertain of enrollment. The other thing too is we got an email about a 5th grader in a class with only 15 students, where I see this as an equity piece with 15 students. And obviously, like they mentioned, Mandarin is probably, or it is more complicated than Spanish, but I see it as those kids are actually getting more of a one-on-one help from their teachers versus our other Redwood City school students that are in a classroom with 25 to 28 students. Another thing, and again, this all comes from emails, is it sounds like a lot of these families don't believe in the Redwood City School District because they say if it was not for the Mandarin program, they would be in private schools. And so when they talk about student recruitment, I feel that this would probably be an issue that would happen, if not every year, every other year. So when they're asking for us to bring in more intra-district students, again, this might be a problem as we talk about the attrition of students leaving and then how it's hard to come in at a higher grade level. And so I think that would become a bigger issue as the time goes by. And with all this said, right now it's a few students now, but we don't know how many more requests will we get in the future. There's a middle school class that apparently looks like they only have 2 to 4 students. Again, we need to look out for all our other students that are underserved, that need that extra help, that perhaps, and in this case, I'm going to mention the English learners. They're in a classroom with 25, almost 30 kids. It would be great if those kids could be in very small classroom sizes, just like this, so that we can then fix the problem we have with kids not reading at level and also reclassification of our students. So those are my thoughts on this.
Thank you, Cecilia. Are there other comments?
Well, I would like to say that I know that learning Mandarin is more difficult than Spanish. I try, but my niece always corrects me. She says, no, Auntie, you don't say it that way. So it is a little difficult. My niece and my nephew are trilingual. They speak English, Spanish, and Mandarin. So I know the difficulty of making the characters and trying to learn that is more difficult. I also understand that our students are having a hard time across the district. You know, they've all been learning with distance learning. Some didn't have devices. Dr. Baker and his staff have done a marvelous job trying to get everybody on board. But the reality is that there's a lot of learning loss there. It's not only in the Mandarin immersion, but I'm sure if you look at the numbers, it's across the board. So I think that we need to look at the whole. When it comes to inter-district transfers, to the thing that I was concerned about is that we told the whole community that we were not going to let in any more inter-district transfers. And several of the families have left because they didn't have that option anymore. So I think that was unfair to them if we're going to change the rules now. The other issue is that if we allow more inter-district transfers for the Mandarin immersion, as Cecilia mentioned, there's going to be those that will want it for North Star. And will that be displacing some of our students who would then not have an opportunity to take advantage of that program if they so wish? The other thing is that my concern also is that some of the students are leaving, some of the families are leaving the Mandarin immersion for other programs. So why are they leaving? If they said they wanted to really be committed to this program, why did they leave? And that's kind of the information that I would like to have. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria. Janet or Mike, do you have any additional comments?
I think the only other thing that I'd put in there is that none of this has been discussed as like, and maybe this should have been in one of my questions, but is the plan to always have it, like if interdistrict transfers became part of this, is the plan that they're always a part of the MI program, or they're a stopgap until the interest is generated inside of Redwood City School District? And what is it that takes that interest to happen? So I guess fundamentally the question is there enough interest inside of the Redwood City School District for this program to support it at a size that's going to make it viable in long term? And how long does it take to get there? I think that would have to be, if there were any interest in doing that, that's just got to be there. We don't have that information, or at least I didn't see that information at all. The other thing is that this was discussed, as you all know, in 2020, March 2020, and it's not totally clear to me if this discussion that's happening now, if the discussion that's happening now is about some new information that's coming to the board, or if it's just to have the board reconsider its decision, because the conversations are going to be different there. What it seems like is that the ask is for the board to reconsider its decision and maybe put some constraints around it to address the concerns that Maria brought around North Star, where I think the actual ask from the Mandarin immersion program is to say filling an empty seats. So I see all those concerns. I think some of those things can be talked about. But again, it's really, to me, it's about, the true cost, like what, because that's what comes across as a common thread. What is that actual, because remember back in the old funding, I think this program started planning for interdistrict transfers to get it off the ground, to bootstrap it. I think that was always part of the plan. The thing that changed in there is the way the school district got funded. That was 7 years ago that 6 years ago, 7 years ago that the program started. 7, thank you. 7 years ago that the program started. Is that supposed to have been long enough to have generated the interest in the district to get the program going forward? Or is it another 7 years? That's got to be part of that discussion too, because I think that is something where we can have a metric that we can look at and try to use that to bring some objectivity to this, which is I want to acknowledge the families that are impacted here, that have the siblings that are pouring their heart into this MI program. But at some point, this discussion will either turn into us not making a decision, which is deciding to stay with the previous recommendation, or bringing another decision in there and having something that we can try to find a level of objectivity about it, I think would be helpful. Cost, what's the duration of the plan? Is there enough interest in the school district to be able to go forward with that? I think that those are kind of the attributes that I don't totally see, but I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so Mike touched on this a lot. I was going to talk about, it is a young program. It's, been here 7 years, but when we're talking about interdistrict transfers and, that it was meant to support this program to be, as it got started, that looks really different than when we're talking about well-established programs, like the Spanish Immersion, like North Star, like Orion. These have been around for 30 years. And I think that's very different than when we're talking about the Mandarin Immersion program. Clearly, there needs to be some more support for this program. And I think that we need to look at how we can do that better. I see that we were able to fill 2 kindergartens, and that's fantastic with RCSD students. I understand the attrition issue. Again, I would ask why particularly are Mandarin Immersion families leaving for another program in our district when they've made that commitment to Mandarin Immersion. I think that we really need to emphasize that when our families are choosing a school of choice, whatever school of choice it is, they're making a commitment to that school. And I think that we really need to encourage those families to stay with the program that they chose. So instead of leaving Mandarin Immersion to go to another school of choice, they're sticking with Mandarin Immersion, and we don't see that attrition in the upper grades. One thing I did want to ask about, sitting on the bond team, we've talked about the construction on the Orion campus. I don't believe we have any extra classrooms that are being added. So all of the portable units that are currently being used will be filling every classroom space on the campus. So I don't know that we actually have the space to accommodate extra classrooms that are being asked for. And that might be something we need to look at if that's even possible, Dr. Baker, with the bond program, because I don't believe we have extra classrooms that are going in there. Yeah.
You are correct. There are no extra classrooms. There are none.
Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to highlight tonight. I guess we're not making a decision here tonight. So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what next steps would be, but those are just my thoughts tonight. So.
Thank you, Janet.
Well, Lisa, can I ask, I would also like to know the answer to that question about the capacity, because as I was thinking about it, how many classrooms are there if you add a 3rd kindergarten, and then it goes forward? Will we be able to keep them there at that location? I really don't want to see any more movement if it's possible. And I also wanted to really thank the families that have worked so hard to make this program a success. I have seen them out there. I've seen their posts. I've heard from them, and I know they're currently doing outreach all over the place. And it's really hard to hear some of his comments about how their morale is so low and how badly they feel. So anyway, that's all I have at the moment.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do think, Dr. Baker, it would be good to get some more information on the capacity issue on the site. And, you know, I think originally our facilities master's plan, we had an additional 4 classrooms going in there, but due to budget concerns with the bond, we had to take those 4 out.
Right, we did.
So I guess you don't need to answer us tonight, but it sounds like one other question the board would like answered is, when you look at the current capacity, are we assuming that we can allow for 2 Mandarin immersion classrooms? What would it look like if there was 3 there? So
you're talking about the 3rd kindergarten classroom.
Right. And then what that means is it moves up. I mean, this is sort of a similar issue that we had with Orion School when they were at the former Orion campus, and that it would trade off from 1 kindergarten to 2 kindergarten classrooms each year. That was at that point when there was capacity issues. Right. So anyway, we would need to look at that and the whole thing. Yeah, so Janet, this is a discussion item tonight. We were asked or petitioned to bring back the decision, you know, to have this conversation, to hear some more information. I know we've gotten a lot of materials the last couple of weeks, and we certainly heard from parents tonight. And I did want to thank the parents who presented. Very much appreciate you coming forward and all of that. I did see in the chat, there's a lot of comments that are coming from some of the parents. We don't have time to sort of hear from everybody tonight, but I do think, you know, we'll all get a copy of the chat and be able to review what you've said there. And certainly if you have some follow-up comments to the board, you can send us an email, because I did see some concerns that maybe there's some misconceptions or we didn't understand things quite the way you wanted to present them. And so we're certainly open to learning more. So feel free to send us that information as well. And, you know, I did want to just say, you know, on a personal note, and I think you heard this from board members, you know, we are, you know, very sympathetic to siblings and wanting to keep families together. And I think in the perfect world, if we had all the resources in the world, that would be an easy yes, right? We'd give the yes tonight, right? But I hope you can appreciate what the board has said. And I think the struggles that we go through is, what is the cost to the district? What is the precedent we might be setting for other groups who want to come forward and ask for exceptions or similar sorts of requests? And we already know that we have a lot of students that have unmet needs in our district, so there are limited resources. So although families are always the most important things and students are always the most important things, resources do matter. And changing from a state-funded district where we got money for each student that comes to us, moving to a community-funded district where we're limited on the resources that are provided by property taxes and community-funded, and it's really allocated out to the students. You know, what we heard from our CBO, Priscilla, is we're currently spending about $18,000 a student on average. And of course, we know we have some students who get more spent on them because they have additional needs, and some who get less spent on them. And then I also think our budget is high right now because of stimulus funding, right? So we're at probably the highest we'll be for a while. We know that in a couple of years, we're going to see a drop off in funding when the stimulus goes away. So we have to not only plan for this year and next year, but thinking, you know, 5 and 10 years out, right? In terms of the health of our district. That really is our role as a trustee, as a locally elected official for all the students and families in our district. So it doesn't sound like we're coming to any decision tonight. I mean, I think you heard from some of us, we have some questions. We do meet individually with Dr. Baker just about every week. So I'm sure there'll be some follow-up. This is not out of the Brown Act, but we'll be able to, you know, ask any additional questions. We'll certainly get materials from him. And then I would think, Dr. Baker, depending upon the information that we get, what we can do. And at this point, starting next week, we'll have a new board president, Maria Diaz-Slocum, will be taking over the leadership of this group per our rotation on the board policy. And so then our new board president, along with Dr. Baker, can decide sort of how best to move forward in terms of putting this back on the agenda as needed. So I don't know, my board colleagues, how does that sound like for a plan? Is there any additional information you would like or need from either staff or the parents that we haven't already talked about or heard? Okay. So, all right. So like I said, feel free to send us any additional information you'd like. And then Dr. Baker, if you can get some of the answers to the questions that we asked today, more from staff, that would be great. And then Principal Rivera, also feel free, of course, to always communicate with us as well. And I know you have regular communication with Dr. Baker and your families. And so we'll kind of move forward from there. All right, well, thanks again to all the parents tonight. And thank you to our principal at Orion School and with the parent participation and also the Mandarin immersion. And thanks to all the participants. I know we have a lot of participants on the call tonight, and many of you have sent us emails or made phone calls this week as well. So thank you. Okay, so we do have other board agenda items. You're certainly welcome to all stay on this board meeting or go. I just saw a hand wave. I know everybody's very busy, so please stay if you'd like to, but we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Thanks. Okay, so let me see where we're at. All right, we are at 9.2, which is Educator Effectiveness Block Grant.
You're on mute, John.
You're still on mute.
It's because I'm using these two screens. So one screen will block. If I go to one, it blocks the other one. It's like, ugh. So educator effectiveness is the block grant that's coming from the state, and it's to educate our educators and give them PD and make them even better than what they are right now. So this grant has to be discussed tonight. Then it comes back tomorrow, not tomorrow, next week, a week from tonight, for approval. And it has to be done if we want to receive these dollars. And this was another template that was sent to us by the state of California. And thank you, Liz, for putting it together and asking for some information to move it forward with the different types of activities and possibly personnel for this grant. So I'll let you take it from here. I think you're going to be sharing the screen, or is Kyle?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I am. I like to do it. So thank you all for your attention to this. And it's actually, this was kind of a fun one to do compared to some of the other plan writing that's been taking place over the past several months. This is a large amount of money that is meant, as Dr. Baker was just saying, to increase and improve educator effectiveness. And so it was fun to really think about what are our needs aligned with our priorities. So I'm going to show you just, okay, hoping you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to show you just an overview of the plan that you have received. And again, it's the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. And this is funding that is coming to us now and can be expended from now through 2026. And so I know you read the plan, and we are not planning on starting any of these activities until next year. Just to give us time to prepare, as well as time to find the people to provide some of these services. But the goal of the funding is to support staff who directly work with students and to promote equity and the quality and the effectiveness of our educators. And the allocation that we received is based on a formula that comes from our CalPADS information about the number of full-time equivalents that we have in both certificated and classified staff members. And so that amount that will be coming to us to be spent over the next 5 years is over $1,657,000. And so this was a large amount of money to spend, again, with the purpose and the intent of improving our educator effectiveness. So we did some planning, of course, around this funding, and we took a look at a variety of components, one being, of course, our scores, our data that we had available to see where are some areas of need. We also took a look at the upcoming initiatives. Earlier this evening, we mentioned TK, and so that is something that's on our horizon and will be growing over the next few years, as well as the conversations that we're having with our MTSS team and our equity goals around inclusive practices. We took a look, of course, at what our systems analysis is showing about where there are some needs within our system. And then we also, of course, took a close look at our Lcap goals in order to make sure that there's alignment with all of our plans and all of the work in our areas of focus. So just as a reminder, our Lcap goals, and you will see this reflected in the plan as we talk about our recommendations for staff, for new staff members, is to really ensure that our equity goals are met by the full implementation of the multi-tiered systems of support. And so you will see as we take a look at the recommendations where this Lcap goal comes into alignment with our recommendations for personnel. Another super important goal for us in our Lcap is around our English learners. And you won't see a focus on English learners with this particular grant, but when you see the Lcap come forward to you this spring, you will see that there will be a renewed focus on what we can do for our English learners to ensure their reclassification. And so we'll be dedicating a large component of our supplemental and concentration funding towards our English learners, which is what that money is really intended to do. And then with goal 3, you will see that we have identified an area of need for English language arts or for language arts in writing. And so we will be addressing that with our educator effectiveness funding as well, which will support goal number 3 in our Lcap. So while this might not be that easy to see, these are just screenshots from the plan. And so what we have done is show you here what our recommendations are for funding for additional staff members who will support these initiatives and our Lcap goals. So one of the things that we know in terms of educator effectiveness, which is more broad beyond just the Lcap goals and our initiatives, is that with all that we are facing this year and probably will unfortunately have to continue to face in the next year or so, we have a turnover in staff and a number of new hires that continue to come into our district. And while we have a number of systems in place to support new hires at the beginning of the school year, particularly those who are in our induction program, we have a number of people who are being hired who don't meet those qualifications and who need some pretty intensive support. And so we believe that there is a need for next year and for the year following. So this would be a 2-year position for a part-time position to really support the onboarding of new staff, working with teachers, with interns, and with our classified staff who can really help get them up to speed, learning the curriculum, supporting them with behavior management issues, doing some coaching in class with them, both as classified and certificated staff. So this was one of our recommendations to really support the new hires who have continued to come into our district throughout the school year. So this would be, again, a part-time position for the next 2 years. Although it says 3, that's a mistake. It's just for 2 years. Then, this is very small to read, But in alignment with our Lcap goals, that we are recommending that there be a full-time teacher on special assignment for the next 3 years who will really focus on writing, and particularly the areas of writing across the curriculum, in writing in science, writing in math, as well as writing in social studies, writing in language arts, where we focused on writing a few years ago, and there was a lot of work around writing. We haven't revisited this, and this has been brought to our attention frequently about the need to reboot this work. And so we would really want to look for someone who had a lot of experience in writing, and particularly across the curriculum and at different grade levels. And so that we would be looking to add to our staff development team someone who had this as their area of focus. We also would like to add a person for the next 2 years who would focus on STEAM, on getting up and running the maker spaces, our CTE offerings at the middle schools, working with technology. There are part-time people at a number of sites. Many of them are funded by PTOs, and not all schools have the funding to be able to do this, so that we would like to have a full-time teacher on special assignment who had this as their #1 responsibility to support STEAM initiatives and electives, and with a particular focus on our schools that haven't had this support in the past, to be able to get this enrichment and elective and important work up and running at those sites. So I see what's happened here is that, so I made some changes and did not fix both of these. So some of these say 3 years when they're highlighted in yellow, and then they say 2 years over at the side. And so they are meant to be 2-year positions, although because we added an additional person in here. So I'm sorry for this. So I will go back and fix this for the next time that this comes forward. Aligned with our Lcap goal #1, we also believe that we need a behavior intervention and support, a PBIS TOSA, someone who has the experience in the support. We know that this is an area of great need this year as students have come back onto campus. We know that the behavior work that had happened a couple of years ago not only needs to be supported more fully at the sites, but someone who is available to go meet with the PBIS teams at each school site, to do some training for the teachers, some coaching for the teachers, some working with our MTSS staff at each school site, to really focus on positive behavior, because this really has surfaced as a need at each one of our sites. And for our Lcap goal #1, we are also recommending that there be a TOSA who works on equitable practices, who supports our equity work with a particular focus on what that looks like instruction for universal design for learning and inclusive practices. And so we have that recommendation as well, is that there be someone who has a background in this kind of lesson planning, who can work in collaboration with our initiatives, our SEAL initiatives, as well as our NUA initiatives, but who really helps people pull that together in what that means for developing inclusive environments and universal design for lesson planning. And finally, we're recommending that there be a 0.5 TOSA who has a focus on the pre-K, TK, and K program development, training, and alignment. As was mentioned earlier, there is every year now for the next several years, there will be additional TK students added to the TK programs, with the intention across the state of there being a universal TK, a TK for all, that all 4-year-olds will be served in a TK program. And so that for us, that means a couple more TK classrooms next year, and then probably a couple more after that, a couple more after that. And so we will be working with a 0.5 TOSA who will work with the teachers and support that development of what that looks like to have a really appropriate developmental TK program for children who are that young, because we will be seeing children next year who won't turn 5 until February, right? And so they're very young. And so what does that program look like that the state is recommending it be a full day program. And so some of that is program development for actual instruction, and then some of that is an extended learning program. And that blends another funding source that we'll talk about at another meeting. So this would be a person who would support that development and then support the alignment and the transition of the students into kindergarten. A question came up earlier as well about the requirements for the teachers who are working in the TK program. And the requirements for the teachers are, in addition to holding a California teaching credential, that they also have 24 units of either early childhood education, or that they have some additional experiences in working in the early childhood. And so we do already have 2 people on our staff who have had that experience. And one of those TOSAs, Robin Stone, who is our math and science TOSA at this time, is also on the early childhood credentialing program. And so we have been talking about what that kind of training would look like and how we would support our teachers to get that additional training through either the local colleges or possibly some in-house training. And Robin is going to be meeting with our HR department to discuss what that training could look like. So that is our recommendation for the use of those funds. And I'm going to stop sharing here and see if there are any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to say thank you. You have covered a lot of the areas that to me are very important every year with respect to teacher training, because there's no one that has a bigger impact in our district than the teacher to the students. And I've always been concerned with when we lose some teachers who we've trained and spend a lot of funds on, they move on and we get new ones, and how we make sure that they also receive the training that's needed. You also have addressed the issue of reclassification, which is extremely important, especially as you go on to high school, and the alignment of the pre-K to K and all those challenges that are coming. And I'm really thrilled to see that we're going to get some more support for our maker spaces, which is one of the things that I've been really excited to see in our district. So I just want to say thank you very much and good job.
Yeah.
I agree. Thanks. And Dr. Baker said it, you really are an expert plan writer. It's not just putting together the strategies, but it's so clearly aligned to the allowable use of funds and our LCAP. And it's just made so easy for us to be able to see that and put that together. And I really appreciate that, because that makes it a lot easier to review and understand how everything is putting together. I had asked about the expanded TK credentialing, because when SMC-SBA hosts monthly meetings with County Superintendent Nancy McGee, she had always been reminding us that this is coming, that we had to approve this grant. And it had always been encouraging us to see if we wanted, to look for using these funds for the expanded credentialing requirements. And so that was the motivation for the question, was just to say, okay, well, they're saying, hey, this is a use of funds. This is something you should be thinking about. This expanded requirement is coming. So I was just glad to hear that was all taken care of. And thank you for sharing that tonight.
Thank you.
And same here. I'd like to appreciate everyone in your team, and of course, all those staffers that help implement all the resources that will be distributed to our students.
Yeah, it's exciting to see, what we can do when we have money coming in. So Liz, thank you for all your work on that plan and just making it so easy to read and understand. Really appreciate your time on that.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you as well. And it's really nice to see the state acknowledge the importance of professional development and supporting our teachers and coaching. Something our district has valued for a long time, and we keep sort of finding different ways to fund it, including, some very generous private donors have been funding our professional development. So it's really nice to see these added to what we're talking about. Yeah, and I agree. You probably were already an expert plan writer, but you've really taken it to another level given all the plans this year. So thank you very much. One question I had is on the, what do you call it? Like the child, it's for the young children credits. What do you call those?
The ECE credits, early childhood education.
Yeah, thank you. Early childhood education credits. I know that in the past, some of our community colleges had programs. So is that where we would look to?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I was thinking
all of them have them.
Great.
Because there's very robust programs.
Right, reinventing the wheel, and maybe we can even collaborate with them and bring them to our district. And they're actually doing all virtual classrooms right now anyway, our local community colleges. So anyway, it sounds like you're already sort of thinking about that, and that's great. Okay, did we hear from everybody? I think so. All right, so this was just a discussion item, and then next week it'll come to us to approve, is that right?
Yes, and it will be corrected. Again, I'm sorry for the mistakes on it.
Yeah, okay, so the 2 and the 3 years, you'll fix those. Okay, great. Yeah, and it's understandable with all the details that you've had to try to put together here. So, okay, good. So anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, thank you again, Liz. Thanks to you and your team. All righty, so we have our consent items. And as a reminder, we moved up 11.2 through 11.8. I believe, right?
It was 0.7.
It was to 11.7.
Oh, sorry,
right.
to 0.7. Yeah, 11.7. Right. Okay, thank you. Right. So 11.8, 9, and 10 stay, and 11.1. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent items?
Yeah, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so Mike with the second from Janet. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Lawson.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Solcom.
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. All right, we are on to 11.1, which is the adoption of Resolution 19, approval of the 2022-2023 CDE funding for our preschool programs.
Mike,
there you go.
Do any of you have any questions on the funding that's coming through? I didn't think so.
All right. So if there's no questions, there was a resolution, so we needed to leave this on action. If there's no questions, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
So Maria made the motion, Cecilia seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Lawson.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Solcom.
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. All right, we're on to 11.8, which is approval of personnel changes.
Hi, good evening. Are there any questions regarding this particular item?
I think I had any. Anyone else? All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Janet made the motion. Mike seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Lawson.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Solcom.
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. All right, we're on to 11.9, approval of provisional internship permit.
Thank you. This particular proposal is coming to you tonight mainly as a stopgap for a short number of weeks before this employee will be starting an internship program, so to be in proper credential status. we're requesting this provisional internship permit. I know we use the word internship interchangeably, but they actually mean two different things through the California Teaching Credential Program. Are there any questions regarding this particular teacher for Kennedy?
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Cecilia made the motion, Maria seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Lawson.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Locum.
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. Thank you, Wendy, for all your HR work, you and your team.
Thank you. I'll pass the message along.
All right, so now we're on to 1110, which is our annual developer fee report.
So good evening. I'm also going to ask you if you have any questions for these. The numbers that are presented here are the same as the information that's provided when we presented the unaudited actuals. It's just a separate disclosure requirement.
Doesn't look like there's any questions. I just wanted to make a comment that it was a good reminder of the importance of this money and how it's been used to really update our facilities. You know, a lot of it was used for the Hoover Gym, which is going to be such an amazing facility for our community. And then of course the other areas. So I just want to say, I'm really happy that we have these developer fees. It's really important. So anyway, it was a good reminder to see where the money's going. And of course, then we're approving the developer fees. So, okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
So Maria made the motion. Cecilia seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Lawson.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Vice President Diaz-Locum.
Aye.
President McAvoy.
Aye. All right, we're on to board and superintendent reports. Would like to start?
Start with, we had the Measure U Oversight Committee. We saw the report that was presented here tonight. MTSS committee had at least one. I can't remember if there were two. It's still laying out it's laying out foundational work, but in the last one, we started breaking into subcommittees. Focused around SEL, I think PBIS and academics are the three subtracks within there. So that's exciting to see all that coming along and how that's going to develop. I attended CSBA's AEC with President McAvoy. There's too much to report out on that specifically, but I learned a lot, so I was glad to be there. And then I attended, as did others, will report as well, the county the committee on the school district organization, where they were doing a public hearing for parcel transfers. This was this past Monday, and that's it.
I'll add on because Mike attended these as well. We had a bond team meeting, and I'm actually not sure you were there. No, you weren't there because you were at CSBA. Got it. And we had the MTSS district leadership team meeting. Were you not there also, Mike? Because that was the same day.
No, that I came and I took from the hotel. Yeah. I didn't want. Yeah.
And then the only thing I have to add also is that Dr. Baker and Wendy and I attended the RCSD RCTA climate meeting last week. I think. I don't know. It's all a blur. But I think that's all I have to add. So.
Well, I'll go next. I attended the transfer meeting as well. And Cecilia and I attended the budget meeting today. The report is forthcoming.
And then of course, mine is the same as Maria, those 2 meetings.
Thank you very much for your work on the budget committee, Cecilia and Maria. Really appreciate that. And of course, Priscilla on putting together the budget. So that'll be good to see. So let's see, I had some similar things. I did want to just comment that, boy, I was gone all last week for CSBA board meeting, delegate assembly, and then the annual education conference that Mike mentioned. And it was really good to sort of hear from, other school board members about best practices and also just things going on in the district. And it made me feel grateful, and I imagine Mike feel grateful for sort of where we're at with our district and what's going on in San Mateo County. I think we've really done a good job as a county working together the last year and a half through this pandemic. And then our district, really a lot of what we heard in terms of best practices that school districts have been doing the last year and a half or couple of years. Many of those things we've also been doing. So it made me feel really good about what we've been doing. And again, it's not perfect. And of course, in hindsight, there's always things we could learn and have done a little bit differently. But I think on a whole, our community has really tried to support one another. So and then, we had some amazing, just kind of inspiring speakers and that sort of thing. So I know that the conference will be virtual. So if you have an opportunity to watch some of the speakers and stuff, it might just help re-inspire you if you need a little inspiration. And let's see, I did want to just mention for the audience that we did have on Monday night, just as Mike and Maria mentioned, I think all of us were on the Zoom meeting, and it was the meeting for the San Mateo County Committee on School District Organization. And we did have a property transfer request from some homes over near Woodside High School to leave our district and to go over to Las Lomitas. And so we did oppose that petition. And we thank you, Dr. Baker and Priscilla, for your really good comments and all the work you did to prepare for that presentation. So really appreciate it. And then, of course, the rest of us were there to support our staff as well in terms of the comments. So thank you for that. And I guess we'll hear back on that in the next month. Well, I guess in January, it sounds like. Yeah. Okay. And then I also went to the reception that the mayor and the vice mayor had. So for Redwood City, you probably know on Monday night, they did a changeover. If you don't know, then it's good to know that Mayor Diane Howard is now former Mayor Diane Howard. And then we now have a new mayor, Giselle Hale, and a new vice mayor, Diana Reddy. And so I was able to go down there and chat with them. And they all said they're very excited to continue to work with our school district and support family and youth. So that was good to hear. And that's it for me.
And for myself, everything's been mentioned with the exception of one item. And this was yesterday that we met with the Stanford mental health group, right, Liz? And so it's really interesting to see, and it kind of blew me away, how far along we are with our mental health clinicians and the services that they're providing to our kids. So they are going to do this similar report, which they gave to me and to Liz, and Michelle Griffith was there, give to the board on January 19th. And it'll be Dr. Shashank Yoshi, and probably Amy Gernstein will be there, and some others from Stanford, to give you information of where we are right. We started this, back when we said we were going to go full board with a clinician, a mental health clinician at each school site. And they are going to guide you through when we started with the interviews to where we are right now. And like I say, it is mind-boggling just to know the amount of services that our kids are receiving. It's fantastic. It is fantastic. So they're really thrilled because they're working with us, the district, and it's been, what do I want to say, Liz? A pleasure. It's really not only a pleasure, but we collaborate very well together. And so that's a big plus to get to where we are right now, because they're working with some other districts and they're not anywhere where we are. And they've started a few years ago. So it was really interesting to hear. So I'm very happy to have them come and present to you in January, the 19th of January. That's it for me.
All right. So correspondence, I think we already mentioned earlier that we received a lot of correspondence around the Mandarin immersion proposal and allowing out-of-district students into our school district. So we did receive a lot of information there. I'm trying to think, was there any other correspondence?
That was the major one. That was the major.
Yeah, a lot of emails and stuff. Okay. And then other business suggested items for future agenda. It sounds like, John, you just mentioned the mental health. That's great. You know, one of the things that was mentioned last week that some of the school districts have gotten is a report from Care Solace on the numbers. And, you know, that's the county program that we've made available to staff and students and families. And of course, they don't divulge any personal information, but I was told that we'd be able to get just some general information about numbers of who's, you know, how many are using it. So I don't know, maybe on January 19th, if we're talking about mental health, maybe there'd be a possibility either get just a written report from them or have one of them attend as well. I know other districts are really happy with the results of Care Solace, and I don't have a sense of how much we're using that.
So I can get that information for you. The other thing that we need to bring forward also is that Stanford did, and during our one-on-ones, I think I told you this, Stanford did an amazing research project on Adelante Selby. And they took it back to its beginning with Liz and where it is now. And if Amado Padilla, who ran the research, if you want to have a successful dual language Spanish immersion program, this is the one to look at. Yeah, so the report's already written up, and he already met with Liz, myself, and we went through it with them, and so now they're ready to present to the board. And it's great to have that because there are so many other Spanish immersion programs, dual Spanish immersion programs, that don't meet the mark like ours does. And you'll see those students that have gone through it that are now beyond us, beyond college, and how successful they are. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I will have them come and present since they're doing this one January 19th, maybe in February, in the February meeting, because I know Amado is going to be taking some time off during the holidays.
That's great. And we could also look at any additional best practices coming out of that. You know, we heard a lot from Mandarin Immersion program tonight, and maybe there's some lessons there learned that we could also work to apply with our Mandarin Immersion program. And then of course our other bilingual programs. So that's great.
Yeah.
And that's just nice accolades for Redwood City in terms of our track record with immersion programs.
And I'm not sure if they've already sent, Liz, maybe you can remind, if they've already sent their, because when they do the research and it's been vetted through ourselves, then they go ahead and they do a, like a PR piece that gets out, and it's through Stanford, and you just click on it and anybody who wants to can read about it. I'm not sure if they've done that or not, or they're going to. Liz, do you remember?
Well, so I know we presented it to the whole region, right? So
yeah, we did to the whole region.
But so I would think that would mean that it was available, but I can find out.
Okay.
I'll ask.
Great, thank you. All right, any other agenda items? Okay. And so it sounds like we'll have the budget report next week, is that right? Okay, great. All right, board agenda calendar, was there any additions to that, Eliana, our last meeting? Okay. All right, we're at the adjournment time, and actually it's 9:08. I'm sorry I didn't ask anyone, but usually at 9 but it looked like we were pretty close. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the adjournment?
So moved. Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, who was the first?
Cecilia.
Cecilia, okay. Cecilia made the motion, Maria seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job, Elisa. Thanks.
All right. Oh, and at our next meeting, Maria, get ready.
I don't know if I'm ready, but okay.
So we'll have virtual cake.